Hello, everyone. My name is Naomi, and I am a certified child sleep consultant, and I own a company called Catching Little Dreams. And today I am so excited to be joined by Rachel, who I have previously worked with in the past, and she is going to tell us all about what it was like to work with me and how she felt through the journey and beyond. So, hello, Rachel. So nice to see you.
Oh, it's nice to see you as well. I can't believe can't believe it's been so long actually since we worked together. But yeah, see you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. So, why don't you tell everyone about yourself a bit?
So my name is Rachel. I am mum to Elijah, who is almost 2. I am wife to Phil, who is a school teacher. And when we worked together, probably the last thing you knew, Naomi, is that I was a wedding coordinator. But actually, the way that life has taken a bit of a turn, I'm actually not doing that job anymore, which is sad, but I am pursuing a career in teaching dance and musical theatre, which is something that I never thought I'd actually have the opportunity to do. So that's amazing, and that's what I'm doing now.
Oh my goodness, that makes me so happy because you know my background as well, and I'm all about the jazz hands and the singing and the dancing. So I'm so excited about that. That's awesome. Okay, so like you said, we worked together when Elijah was what, 5 months old? Was that about the time when we worked together? So tell people what things were like at the point, like just when we met each other, like.
Elijah has always been actually a really brilliant kid, and not he wasn't a massive complainer. He was a very, very happy child. However, his sleep was very, very dependent on us. And for a certain amount of time, I was okay with that. And he was fresh and he was new. But it came to a point where we were losing a sense of our own time. And I guess when you come home from work and you have those evenings together as a couple, that's really the only chance that you get. And Elijah was not letting that happen, just because he needed one of us to always be with him when he was trying to get sleep, or through the night, because he had a dummy but he wasn't at the age where he could put it in his mouth himself. He needed constant attention through the night, so it was very broken sleep and very inconsistent sleep. It was tough. I'm not very good at not having control or an element of structure over a situation. Um, and we were tired.
Yeah. And I remember, so this all sounds a bit creepy, but I approached you, didn't I? Because I remember watching your stories. I found your account and I was watching your stories and I just thought, oh gosh, it really doesn't have to be this way. And I remember messaging you and going, it's all going to get better. It's all going to be okay. And if you want me to, I can help you with that. But what did you think when I messaged you and said that?
It's actually really funny because when I was thinking about what might I say in something like this, I was thinking Naomi really, really wanted to help me.
I
And it
did.
took a while to say, okay. But like you say, actually, you'd seen some of my stories on, it was a kind of a mum and baby motherhood honest journey page that I had started. Where I shared truths and I asked for advice and I gave advice, and you kept dropping into my inbox when I put something in about Elijah sleeping, just saying, try this or try this, or, please let me help you. And it took a bit of time, but that is the wonderful thing. Obviously, we all know that technology and the internet has got lots to answer for, but that is one brilliant point to being in a lockdown situation, which is where we were, and having access all of a sudden to all of these professionals, yourself specifically, who really just wanted to help. And it completely changed my world.
Oh, that's just so good to hear. And the thing is, sleep training changed my life as well. And that is why I feel so passionately about helping other families because I'm like, this is a game changer. Like, you need this. Like, it makes such a difference because, what we taught him was not only to fall asleep on his own, but the night wakes went, didn't they? We got rid of the dummy, so there was no more of that went on. So when you were kind of getting to that decision where you were like, okay, let's go for it, what did Phil think about it all? What was his opinion on it all?
I think Phil was just as on board as I was. I'm the one who runs my page. So, and Phil was, he's a working dad and I was on maternity leave. So I spent a lot more kind of concentrated time thinking about these things. But at that point, Elijah was in our room with us, in a next to me. And I don't know if you know this, but he was on Phil's side of the bed because I really, really struggled to fall asleep initially anyway, because I was quite an anxious person. And then every night wake up, if I was the one kind of responsible for responding to it, I would then really struggle to get back to sleep. So even if Elijah was sleeping, I wasn't. So I think Phil being responsible for that overnight time meant that the idea of getting some help there was welcomed.
Yeah, oh, that's good because when I was in the situation, I had to really sell it to my husband, and he was convinced that it was a whole load of rubbish and how is that going to work? And I was just desperate. So I was like, can we just try? And I said, I'll do it all, just don't worry about it. I'll do it. And then when I approached him about becoming a sleep consultant, he could not have been more supportive because he knew and he trusted and he believed in the process. So it's so nice that he was so on board and supportive of you. Do you mind if we talk a bit about your mental health at that time? Like, how was the broken sleep affecting you with your mental health?
I think that is kind of way further down the line of the story of my mental health, because I had quite a traumatic labor and birth, and then we were in lockdown, so I was in hospital with him on my own for 3 days afterwards. um, and that basically meant that I left home as a pregnant woman and then I came home as a mum who had been awake for 6 days.
Mm.
Emergency C-section in that process, and all all of those individual elements were okay, but accumulated all together just really actually messed with me. So I'm a person who likes structure, and I cope well kind of being able to preempt or plan. And that just took all of that away from me. So I was an extremely anxious person. I needed a lot of help and a lot of professional support, and obviously family and friend support as well. But by the time we got to Elijah being 5 or 6 months old, I was just well into postnatal anxiety. And at that point, they hadn't actually diagnosed me yet, but were highly suspicious that I was suffering with PTSD, which makes a lot of sense given the whole story. But I still hadn't claimed back really elements of control or structure in my life. And a lot of having a baby, your first baby or your fifth baby, obviously that does go out the window. And there's an element of that I was prepared to deal with, but I needed something that I could work on, especially being on maternity leave during lockdown. I needed a way of claiming back space and time and headspace and control. So sleep training was the perfect thing at the perfect time to give me back an element of structure and control in my life.
Yeah, and I just remember like you just didn't have that confidence to make those decisions and to kind of go, right, okay, yeah, I'm going to put him down for a nap now, or it's time for this to happen. And for me, I was like, that's so what I wanted to give you. I wanted to empower you to go, I can do this, I can make these choices. And also, once you know that your child has the skills that they need, suddenly it's like a weight has been lifted and you go, they can do it. Like, I don't have to worry in the same way because actually I know they can do it. So obviously, you said, okay, let's go for it. I signed you up, and then like we do like a detailed intake form, which I find out information about you, your family. And then what was the actual sleep training process like for you? Obviously, I always say I can't promise no crying, but I equally try and prepare families for what is to come because it can be really tough. And especially what I say to people is we are wired up to respond to our baby crying. So therefore, we have to have things in place so you feel that you can move through the process. Because if you're consistent with the way you respond, the crying doesn't last. That goes quite quickly. So how did you find all of that element of it?
I think before going into it, there was a lot that was making me nervous. There was my own kind of feelings as a mum responding to my baby, and not wanting to go anywhere near the cry out, which I think is now a very, I guess, a dated term, because I think most people are aiming to be a bit more gentle. I had some different opinions. Like, you obviously have you have a whole spectrum of things, and it's okay where you sit on that spectrum. But I had the people who, said, but if he wants to be on you, let him be on you, which is a valid point, but not what I needed. And then you have the opinions of people who generally is probably an older generation of leave them, they'll be fine, which I also struggled with finding a balance with that as well. So having a professional person tell you that's okay, or maybe don't do that, just helps me as a non-professional to make those decisions, like you say. The first night, I can't lie to you, there was a lot of crying, but I was prepared. So I actually planned a barbecue. I sat outside with my sister-in-law, who's also one of my best friends, and I drank a glass of wine and I ate a burger, and I left Phil to do the first hour of let's lose the dummy and see what happens. And actually, it's really difficult to explain to people who have not done that how successful and actually gentle that can be. Babies cry because they don't have words and they can't tell you anything else. And he did cry, and he cried because he always falls asleep with his dummy in his mouth, but Phil was with him and gave him everything else that he could have wanted in that time. And we went cold turkey on the dummy, but to do it any other way, like you say, would have been very inconsistent and very unfair, because he wouldn't know when he was and wasn't allowed his dummy. So we got rid of it, and I cannot, to this day, if I gave him a dummy, he wouldn't know what to do with it. From changed everything, and you have to go through that first hour to realize, oh, this is what's on the other side.
Yeah. Oh gosh, absolutely. And that's the thing, I try as best I can to prepare all my families for, I don't just say the first night, it's like the first couple of nights are a period of adjustment for everybody. We are putting something completely new out there for you as a family. And children are going to go, what is going on? And, like you said, exactly like you said, crying is their only language. It's the only way they can explain to us. So within that cry, it might just be, we don't normally do this. What are you doing? I'm really confused. It might be upset. And, in life, unfortunately, our children are going to go through those emotional things, and we're going to have to help them through those situations as best and as gently as we can. And that's effectively what sleep training does. And with the dummy, especially at such a young age, like when we got rid of it, I mean, it can be a night or 2 nights, and within that, they won't even remember what the dummy is then. And it's just incredible. And so, all of those night wakes where you were going and replacing the dummy, or you were, even if Phil was just leaning over and putting the dummy in, those things don't happen because there is no dummy to fall out to replace again. So, yeah, I'm so glad you were on board with that, because not everyone is convinced about the dummy thing. But I'm like, I don't want to leave you still having to do that. To me, that's not job done. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Where if you're going to invest in something like this, you have to be in, and you have to take the advice, for your own sake, because the dummy and then actually afterwards moving him into his own room, both of those things I was very nervous about. And both of those things you said, I really think we should do this. And I said, okay, and kind of just trusted you on it. And I can't, the change. And at the time it feels slow, but realistically, so quickly, the change in him was huge, because we did lose those night wake ups, or if he woke up, he'd learned how to just turn over and go back to sleep. The difference on the other side of it, I wish I could find a way to tell people that.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
hard to put it into words, isn't it? Because for me as well, it was that moving him into his own room. And I remember we extended our time together and I was like, we can do this. Like, that's the next bit. And I really didn't want to leave you and Phil with him still in your room because I was worried that you would go, oh, we'll just keep him in here because it's so much better than it was, that let's just do that. And then it's a whole nother thing to do that move and to make that change. And I was like, do that with me. Like, let's do it together. And then it's done. And, and I just was so proud of both of you and Elijah because he just absolutely smashed it, didn't he? I mean, he could not have done better.
yeah, he's amazing. And actually, he, even now, his it created this space where his room was never a punishment. Um, so we moved him. He was probably about 7 months old, I think, by that point, because I remember it was slightly later than the cutoff time where they say you can do this now, because I was kind of holding on to that a little bit. And it must have been reasonably easy because I actually don't remember moving him. I
Yeah.
don't.
I think his skills were so good at that point that I was like, honestly, you put him in his own room, in that cot, in his bed, and he will just do it because he knows what to do. So yeah, that was amazing.
And that move was from a next to me into a cot bed. So it was a bigger space. He was on his own. He was in his own room. And he didn't even flinch. He just didn't care, which was brilliant. And sometimes people say to me now, he's so good at sleeping. You're so lucky that he's so good. And I think, I'm not lucky. I worked hard.
It's so true though, isn't it? Because even now, Grace is the one who pushed the boundaries. Like she was my bad sleeper. Wills has always slept like a champ. She's the one who's always been a bit, like at 2, she suddenly decided that she didn't want to go to bed when she normally did because we stayed up and she realized that. And she was like, no, and just all of a sudden had a regression. So since we finished, obviously a lot of time has passed. Have you had times like that where things have slipped and you've been able to get it back on track, or have you just found that actually with his skills, things have been much better?
There have obviously been times where we've been thrown curveballs, like he's been unwell or he's been teething or he started nursery. And things do get thrown in. The good thing is now I know if he has a couple of bad sleep days, it's not a complete reset. There are steps and there are ways to just get him back in to his routine and to his comfortable space that in the past, when I first probably started with you, those days were so anxiety inducing for me because I thought, where do we go from here? But now I do know. So traveling 4 hours up the road during the daytime, we did for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and it was really daunting, but we trust the process and I know what his routines are and he smashed it. But I do think that that is down to him knowing what his cues are and him knowing the times of the day where that's when I go to sleep, and knowing that it's a safe thing to do and it's not a battle.
Yeah.
He loves all of my family and friends who have spent any time with Elijah when he is due a nap or due to go to bed know that he loves his sleep because he will go and get his sleeping bag and he will hold it and he'll say, bed. And he asks to go to bed. And I think, brilliant, off you go.
Oh my God, that's Will's. That's William in my house. He'll go, I'm a bit tired actually. I'll go to bed. Whereas Grace is like, oh no, I couldn't possibly. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's just like those things just make me so happy because it's something. And you're so spot on with what you said about like people going, oh, you're so lucky, he sleeps so well. But you invested your time, your energy, your money in improving that. And when you put your energy into something, you just get back so much. And I think that's the key to it, isn't it? I mean, if there were people who are perhaps on the fence, like, should we, shouldn't we? What would you say to those people?
Yeah, I try really hard not to hard sell this. And there will be some people who know that I'm talking about them if they watch this, but I'm so for it. And I share you specifically all the time because I think it's going to change your life. And you don't know it yet until you're on the other side of it, but it's going to change everything. And not just necessarily your child and your relationship with your child's sleep. But for me and Phil, it changed our marriage because we got our space and our time back. We gained our bedroom back. So we weren't living in just our living room, and then everywhere else was kind of out of bounds from 7 o'clock onwards, because Elijah had moved into his own room and our world just opened up. So we were able to go out for dinner and have my mum come round and put Elijah to bed, because he knew exactly what to expect. And it was a carbon copy every time. And if that didn't go down very well, we knew what to say to those people to make it happen. I can't stress enough how much sleep training Elijah has changed my social life, my professional life, my mental health, more than anything else. I struggle to talk about my mental health and not get very emotional about it, but this changed everything. And specifically, if people are struggling with their mental health and they think that an element of that might be down to a lack of sleep on their part or a lack of sleep on their child's part, the investment is so worth it. And I am excited for you going into it, because it just changes everything. It's so brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm having done sleep training myself with a consultant, like I get excited with you because I'm like, yeah, it's all of those things, isn't it? And I used to think sleep was like a key pillar of our health. And actually, the more I learn about sleep, the more I think it's the foundations of everything, because it does improve your physical health, your mental health, your overall well-being. And not only that for us as a parent, but we're gifting that to our child. We are teaching them a skill that they're going to benefit from for years and years to come. And so, hearing all that is just, it's so lovely. And I feel exactly the same about my sleep training journey as well. So thank you so much for taking your time out of your evening to talk to me. I so appreciate it. And I've got you a little something actually. So I'm going to show everyone this if you can see it. So it's a picture frame. I don't know, is it backwards or forwards on your
It's
screen? So it says, never forget how wildly capable you are. Because I remember sending you a picture of this quote after we finished working together, going, this is you. You need to look at this on like a daily basis because you're incredible. And so I want you to put that somewhere where you can like walk past it all the time and just look at it and go, yes, I am wildly capable. Because you were just a joy to work with. Your commitment to the sleep plan ultimately led to you to an incredible outcome. And yeah, I just can't thank you enough for everything you did then and for tonight as well. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Do you know, that's actually really funny, because I was thinking back to a time, some of my closest people in the world have just had babies literally in the last few days, and it's wonderful, but it has made me think back to that time where I was there and it was really tough, and I ache for them, knowing that there's going to be times that feel like that. And I remember calling my mum one day. I put Elijah down on his play mat and I went into my bathroom and I sat on the toilet lid and I called my mum and I cried and I said, I don't understand why I'm so incapable. I was just going through it.
Yeah, exactly. And no one tells you this stuff, do they? Motherhood is so hard, the hardest job I've ever done, but also the most rewarding. It's like this huge roller coaster, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. Yeah. But thank you so much for spending this time. And just, I think it's really important for people to see, not only what this process involves, but also how you can come out the other end and, what that looks like. And, remember, Elijah's now 2 and we worked together when he was 5 months and you are still reaping the benefits of that. So yeah, amazing.
That, but I want to say specifically you, it's not just the sleep training that has been beneficial. That's obviously wonderful, but the fact that if Elijah fell down the stairs a couple of months ago and he really hurt himself and it landed us in hospital for the time when he should be asleep. And I knew I could just pick up my phone and send you a WhatsApp message and say, I don't know what to do in this situation. Please just guide me. And you and your business is great, but you as a person really is what makes a difference. because not everybody would make that available to you, and you do. And 2 years later, I still know that if I needed to, I could pick up my phone and ask you for help. So
Yeah. Oh, good. Like for me, again, that's so important. Like I don't just take on a family and go, right, client one is called, Mr. X. It's like, I want to help you because I care about you and your family and getting you to the best results. So that means so much to me. Thank you. And I always will. You know me. Just send me that message. Oh, well, thank you so much. And I'm sure we will keeping in touch. And yeah, thank you so much for your time.